Life is not normal in any sense of the term. Unfortunately, we know that so many people today around the world have lost a lot of their retirement as the stock market has continued to be so turbulent and businesses are closing and we're facing incredible global economic concerns. Honestly, many of you right now may be in a very, very difficult spot. Some of you are sick, perhaps very sick. Some of you worried about loved ones. Many of you, perhaps you're working less hours than you would like, or you had a job that you loved and you don't have that job anymore. There's so much pain, so much uncertainty. The bills might be mounting, your marriage might be struggling. I just don't know how I'm supposed to trust in God. It's so much easier to tell somebody else, you trust in God, than it is to trust in God yourself. It's kind of like the difference between a minor surgery and a major surgery. What's the difference between a minor surgery and a major surgery? A minor surgery is whatever surgery you're having, right? If you're having it's not that big of a deal, it's a common surgery. But the moment that I have one, it becomes a major surgery. That's a little bit what it's like trying to trust God. It's really easy to tell somebody else, hey, just trust in the Lord. But when you don't have a paycheck, or when you're battling depression, or when you feel all alone, or when you feel like everything that you thought was stable now is unstable, how, like practically, how do you trust in God at that moment? How do you trust God when your marriage feels so fragile? How do you trust God when your kids are rebelling? How do you trust God when someone that you love that's vulnerable is very, very sick? How do you trust God when your job is unstable or you got downsized out of your company? How do you trust God when you're so concerned about what's going to happen in the future? From Psalm 22, verse 19, one of David's prophetic psalms, he said this of God. He said, but you, Lord, do not be far from me. And then he said, you are. Here's what David said. He said, you are, God, you are my strength. Come quickly to help me. Who are you, God? You are my strength. Paul said in the New Testament that whenever you're weak, whenever you don't have enough strength on your own, whenever you're vulnerable, whenever you're hurting, Paul said, whenever you are weak, God's strength is made perfect in you. In other words, every time you have a weakness, you also have an opportunity to experience God's strength, God's power, and God's presence. I feel like I'm speaking to somebody right now. You're hurting, you're overwhelmed. You feel like there's just too much. I don't know if I can make it another day. The news just continues to mount. I don't know how we're gonna make it. Give God your weakness. When you give him your weakness, he will give you his strength. You get to the end of your strength, you have nothing left. You feel like you can't go on for another day. Here's the good news. Who is God? He is your strength. In your weakness, in your vulnerability, in your brokenness, his strength is made perfect. When you can't give another rep, his power steps in. He is your strength. Who is God? God is your strength. Those who know his name, trust in him. God, you are my strength. The economy may be up, the economy may be down. There are times when you're even gonna let yourself down. The good news is though, and the Apostle Paul told us this in the New Testament, that even when we are faithless, God is faithful. Because he can never disown himself. Who is God? You are faithful, God. I don't know about you, but I've let God down time and time again. I've failed God too many times to count, but his faithfulness has never failed me once. Who is God? He is a faithful God. His word is true. He is always faithful in every single way. What do you call God? When you get to know him, when you get to know him. The moment that you feel weak, you say, God, you are my strength. When we feel the world is unstable, we say, God, you are always faithful. Whenever you feel anxious, unsure, or afraid, you say, God, you are my hope. When you feel isolated or alone or hurting, you say, God, you are always near. You will never leave me. You will never forsake me. When you mess up, when you fail, when you fall short, when you hurt others, when you sin against God, God is not just good, he's so good. He's not just ready to forgive, he's so ready to forgive. He's not just love, he is so full of unfailing love for anyone who calls on him. Because God is love, he sent his son Jesus to give his life, to reveal his heart. God didn't just shout his love from heaven, but he showed his love on earth. And what if in the middle of a time when you're hurting and feel so low, it's time for you to look up and not talk to the big guy in the sky, but talk to a faithful and loving and forgiving God who is near. Because if you know him like that, he's not someone else's God, but you can say, he's my God.